The Chicano Movement, an introduction. As with the African American community, the 1960s and 70s for Mexican Americans or Chicanos are remembered as a period of great change. It was a time when people of color and immigrants took control of their communities and challenged racist institutions and oppressive systems that barred them from a dignified livelihood. For the Chicano Mexicano community, the victories of the UFW were evidence that social change could occur through collective struggle. Cesar Chavez and the farm workers inspired Chicanos Mexicanos throughout California and the Southwest. They identified with the UFW as its success and tribulations became their own. The UFW also served as a base of support for social and political activism, where Chicanos Mexicanos from all over the country volunteered and supported the movement. The economic and political advances of the farm workers movement were tremendously instrumental because the movement provided a base for activism and opportunity in shaping a new pool of leaders and enabling Chicanos to gain a national profile for their work and struggles. Although the UFW's concern focused on immigrant and labor issues, Cesar Chavez and the farm worker struggle was part of a much broader development within the Chicano Mexicano community, known as the Chicano Movement. The mid-1960s through the 1970s marked an explosion of Chicano Mexicano activism, where El Pueblo took control of their community, reclaimed stolen land, challenged the racist education system, spotlighted police brutality, and forced the reallocation of government funds to provide services to their people. At the same time that Cesar Chavez and the UFW organized around labor concerns, other Chicano Mexicano leaders focused on land issues. For example, in New Mexico, Raiz Lopez Tijerina and the Alliance for a Free Community in New Mexico argued that the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo 1848 guaranteed their Pueblo grazing rights on land that the government turned into a national forest. Tijerina and the Alliance for a Free Community received national attention when they armed themselves and reclaimed a portion of that land in the name of their pueblo. One of the most pressing issues in every Chicano Mexicano community throughout California and the Southwest was the racist public school system. Over 50% of the Chicano high school community was forced to drop out of school either through expulsion and transfers to other schools or simply because they had not been taught to read and thus failed their courses. Chicano schools were overcrowded and run down compared to Anglo and black schools of the district. Many teachers openly discriminated against Chicanos, and students wanted racist teachers removed. The curriculum was designed to obscure the Chicanos' culture and to condition students to be content with low-skilled jobs. Students demanded more Chicano teachers and administrators. Challenging the inferior education system in their communities, Chicano Mexicano professors and teachers formed the Association of Mexican American Educators. They demanded an increase in resources, bilingual education, training and recruiting of minority faculty, and curriculum that included Mexican history and the contributions of Chicanos. In 1968, Chicano Mexicano students and professors participated in the Third World Liberation, or the Third World Liberation Front, coalition of Chicanos, Mexicanos, Centro Americanos, African Americans, Vietnamese, Koreans, Chinese, Japanese, and Filipinos that fought for an ethnic studies department at San Francisco State University and UC Berkeley. In Los Angeles, one of the most militant organizations of this time period was the Brown Berets. With their militant style and anti-police rhetoric, the Brown Berets attracted street youth who redirected their fighting energies towards established authorities. Professor Acuna explains, imbued with the politics of liberation, they dealt with the immediate needs of the barrio: food, housing, unemployment, education. Their ideology was molded by the conflict and the street, spotlighting the inferior education that Chicanos Mexicanos received in public schools. The Brown Berets organized blowouts in 1968, where over 7,000 high school and college students walked out of their schools. The publicized event inspired Chicanos Mexicanos in other southwestern states, and students organized their own blowouts that lasted for several months. These blowouts underlined the continued concern for adequate education in the Chicano Mexicano community. Teachers, students, and community activists marched and protested for the elimination of the barriers and policies that thwarted education performance and achievements of Mexican Americans. Others utilized the system to empower the Chicano Mexicano community. This was the case in Crystal City, Texas, where Mayo, Mexican American Youth Organization, cemented ties with the surrounding community and received an $8,000 federal grant for community development. Part of this money went to Vista, a program that protested inequality, police brutality, and poverty. However, the government canceled Vista funds when workers participated in an anti-police rally. In reaction, Mayo's leader, Jose Angel Gutierrez, according to Acuna, led a protest of more than 2,000 Chicanos Mexicanos to reinstate the program and claimed, "We are fed up. We are going to move to do away with the injustice to the Chicano, and if the gringo doesn't get out of our way, we will stampede over him." Cultural nationalism. During this historic period, a movement emerged that re-articulated a great sense of pride in being Chicano. Along with the community organizing, mass actions, and protests, the concept of Aztlan developed. Aztlan was the legendary point of origin of the Aztecs that was believed to be located north of their capital, Tenochtitlan, or in the southwestern region of the U.S. In Aztlan, the appropriation from the elite lore of ancient Mexico of such a seminal emblematic device as Aztlan was the brilliant political maneuver of the Chicano cultural nationalists. Nothing their critics have done has managed to surpass or equal this feat of organizational strategy under no other sign or concept derived from the left, center, or right were as many Chicanos mobilized and as much enthusiasm galvanized into political action, except for the concept of Chicanismo itself. Aztlan transformed a colonized mentality to a new art that reflected revolutionary culture and identity that emphasized their Mexican heritage in an Anglo environment. Radical politics, militant actions, Aztlan, and Chicano pride all influenced the new form of Chicano theater, art, music, and poems that addressed the issues of racism and exploitation in the barrio and promoted revolutionary thoughts and ideas. Many recognize Luis Valdez and Teatro Campesino as one of the most influential cultural groups of the Chicano movement. Teatro Campesino accompanied UFW marchers on their long journeys and traveled from campo to campo and from barrio to barrio, performing nightly theater pieces where the audience cheered, laughed, and vented their anger. The young and old, the students and farm workers, the activists and bystanders all absorbed revolutionary ideas, where the drama of conflict projected La Causa into the national consciousness. Along with Chicano Mexicano theater and muralism, music also contributed. Excuse me. The Chicano movement also sparked a new art form, painted on the walls of every Chicano Mexicano barrio. Chicano muralism was a spontaneous movement in urban neighborhoods where Chicano muralists continued the tradition of Siqueiros, Diego, and Orozco. Following their Mexican predecessors, Chicano muralists took their art to public spaces, rejected European art traditions, and drew inspiration from their own history and culture. Believing that their art had the power to raise the community's social consciousness, Chicano muralists intertwined politics and art. Among the various themes, their murals critiqued capitalism, depicted the class conflict, elevated the workers' struggle, discussed issues of immigration, and addressed the duality of being European and Indian. Along with Chicano Mexicano theater and muralism, music also contributed to Chicano cultural nationalism. Mexican corridos resurfaced during the Chicano movement and played a prolific role in raising the pueblo's social and political consciousness. The Chicano Pride movement sparked another corrido revival in the 1970s, celebrating such cultural icons as Cesar Chavez, migrant farm workers, Mexican victims of Anglo racism, and non Chicano symbols of hope like John and Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King. Poetry also played a prominent role in the Chicano movement. In contemporary Chicano poetry, the work of Michael Sierra, Juan Felipe Herrera, and Luis J. Rodriguez writes, Chicano artistic expression in poetry in particular reflected all of the faces of the movement within a very condensed time. In it, Chicanos heard, as if for the first time, their own way of speaking and feeling, that is, bilingually, biculturally. They also recognized a whole class of images ranging from imprisonment, isolation, and urban poverty to proletarian democracy, utopian dreams, and the glory of ancient Mexico. Many Chicano poets encouraged those indifferent to their community's plight to get involved and further provided strategies for their people's liberation. For example, in Colorado, the Crusade for Justice focused their movement on economic development, business, entrepreneurship, political representation, and cultural awareness and involvement. The leader of the Crusade for Justice, Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez, addressed this strategy in his epic poem, I Am Joaquin. I am Joaquin, lost in a world of confusion, caught up in a whirl of a gringo society. My fathers have lost the economic battle and won the struggle of cultural survival. And now, I must choose. This is an introduction. Assigned materials have further details and analysis.